So my name is Ethan McCarron. I've had a very chaotic life. I have struggled through several things, but this video is going to be a little bit different because I don't necessarily have a story like the majority of the people here. I haven't gone to prison. I haven't gone to jail. I haven't done anything that has got me caught. I've just struggled a lot and pulled myself out of it. I was born in San Diego, California. We ended up moving when I was 2 years old. Our next door neighbors had a grenade thrown in through their window, and my dad was like, all right, fuck this. I'm not raising a family here. Moved to Montgomery, Alabama. And that is where I was primarily raised. So we moved there because my mom, her mom, so my grandmother, got cancer, colon cancer, and we just moved out there to be with them. Put down roots. I have 3 younger brothers. We're all bam, 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 one right after another, 1 year apart. There are 4 of us. I'm the oldest. 2 of them were born in Montgomery. The other one right under me, he was born in San Diego, year after I was. So we grew up exceptionally poor. We didn't have very much of anything, and it was no one's fault. It's just kind of what happens. But my dad was working construction, trying to support a family of 6. My mom was a full-time stay-at-home mom. Deeply religious, as you are in the South. So we're always going to church and being taught the good Old Testament Bible. My father is angry. He's much better now, but man, he was very, very angry, abusive. It wasn't great. And that's difficult when you're talking about abuse because there are degrees of it. You can always compare, like, okay, well, I'm comparing myself up, or you're comparing yourself down. And he really did nothing to us compared to what his dad did. My opa, my dad's dad. I mean, he used to throw his kids up on the roof and threw furniture, and he used to shoot the dogs whenever they get on his nerves, take them out in the garage and just wow. He used to shoot at the kids every once in a while. He's a World War II vet, tons of PTSD, very broke, broke like mentally, emotionally, but also fucking broke, didn't have any money. So they were raised horribly. My dad, he like took it from here and knocked it down to here. And so in his mind, it was fine, but when you're a little kid, it's not fine. So I grew up scared of a lot and constantly nervous. Taking a bunch of psychological tests, and one of the things that came up is this thing called hypervigilance. Hypervigilance sounds sexy. It's like, oh yeah, I'm always aware of my surroundings. I know what's going on. That's not that. It's actually linked deeply to anxiety. So that's coming from, okay, well, I don't know. My dad's going to be in a good mood or a bad mood. He got depressive, rapid cycling, bipolar disorder. He'd come home one day and be super happy, over the moon. Nothing could bring him down. I mean, my mom could be like, yeah, I'm blowing the mailman. And he'd be like, that's fine. And then the next day he'd come home and the house is clean, the chores are done, we're all being quiet, and guess what? Everybody's getting it anyway. So it's just psychologically chaotic, very emotionally unstable. And people don't realize what a big impact your parents have on you, but it did. It did a lot. So I grew to find the chaos comforting, and it was my home. During my formative years, those are the people that loved me, were the people that treated me pretty terribly. And so growing up, just through that, in and of itself, I was pretty angry, pretty violent, abrasive, didn't have a whole lot of friends, was always looking for an escape, dream, read, write. Didn't have a TV, obviously, because we were broke. So just growing up fairly normal, but also abused. Decided that I was going to start taking martial arts when I was in, I don't know, I was about 11, maybe 12. And I did very well at it. My dad got a job where he started leaving a lot. He was gone a lot, so life got a little bit better. And we kind of settled into a routine. And so my entire family, all military. Everybody in the military. I could think like all the way, every male member of my family all the way back to, I think, the Civil War is military service members. All 3 of my brothers, military. I served, my dad served, his dad served, my uncles served, my grandparents served. Like, it's just tons and tons. So I knew forever I was going to be in the military, and that's what I wanted to do. And I'd been hearing and reading about the SEALs, the Navy SEALs, trained for that for a long time. It was my dream. 17 years old, I get diagnosed with cancer. So I have non-Hodgkin's Burkitt's lymphoma. It's cancer of the immune system. I don't know why I got it. I just did. But I found out, I got my first real job. I got my first job when I was 14. I was just washing dishes, but I got my first real job as a cashier at a Piggly Wiggly, cashier, stock boy. And I was just having horrible stomach pain. I don't know what it was about. I don't know where it was coming from. But my stomach just kept hurting, like this burning, awful, like right here. It was, like not good. And I never complained about, especially not about pain very much. Just growing up with a whole lot of, fighting and the abuse, and I was pretty used to pain. So one day I came home from work, and I never miss work. Even to this day, I don't miss work for anything. I would rather die than miss work. Work is the only thing that I fell in love with because it was always under my control. I decided when I was going to go to work. I decided how hard I was going to work. I decided I was literally in control of how much money I got paid by the amount of work that I did. Work is where I found the balance to all that chaos in my life. Work was 100% under my control. So my mom knows this about me. And when I come home from work, it raises a big red flag. So she take me to the Pri-Med. I have I guess it was an x-ray. Got an x-ray of my stomach, and they're like, "Oh, dude, you're constipated." Yeah, but guys, I'm not constipated. I've been having bloody diarrhea for a couple weeks. I'm not constipated. And they're like, no, you're constipated. They prescribed me some laxatives. I was like, fuck it. They're doctors. They know what they're talking about. I took the laxatives and went back to normal life. But I kept having this bloody diarrhea, and it got worse and worse and worse. And I'm not talking about like a little blood or a little blood in your stools. I was working out a lot, right? I was training for the Navy, so I was thinking maybe I've got hemorrhoids and maybe I got a little rip. Who knows? But it's not like when you're wiping your ass and you got a little blood on your toilet paper. You're like, man, no, I'm painting the bowl like a shotgun, just fucking blood everywhere. And it was painful too. It was really hurting. So one day I was like, I should probably show my fucking mom. So I called my mom and I didn't flush. So I was like, Mom, look. And she's almost fainted right there. She's like, holy shit. Went immediately to the hospital, got a colonoscopy scheduled, got the colonoscopy 2 days after the consultation, had the colonoscopy, and then hours after the colonoscopy, they were like, you need to go into immediate emergency surgery right now. I had a tumor about the size of in between a baseball and a golf ball. It was maybe like a squash ball size or something smaller than that, covered in ulcers. It's an intussusception, which is basically where your large intestine and your small intestine meet. There's this muscle, it's a sphincter. And my tumor had grown right there, and it was actually pushing through the sphincter, which would mean that all of the liquid waste from my small intestine was just flowing straight through. I didn't have any way. That's why I was having all this diarrhea, because your colon's responsible for reabsorbing most of the liquid in your waste. So I was having tons of just fluid waste pass through, no chance to be reabsorbed. Also, it was covered in blood because that tumor is just massively painted with ulcers. And that's where the pain was coming from. So the next day, I was going back to the hospital for my surgery. I had a laparoscopic colonectomy, and I'm still not thinking that I have cancer. Nobody's told me that I have cancer. They haven't done a biopsy or anything. I was just like, man, that's fucking weird. I have a tumor, but I'm 17, never had any real troubles with my health. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I just breastfed a lot, but I've got a great immune system. So I have this surgery, and they send off my my tumor for biopsies. They let me go home. They're like, hey, yeah, I'm not the day after, right? You got to stay in the hospital. I spent a couple days there or whatever. It's not that important. But then the biopsy did come back, and I'm like, oh yeah, you got cancer. Okay, cool. What does that mean? Now, as I'm about to be 30, if I were to get cancer now, my life would be fucking over. It is absolutely terrible. One of the worst things that could possibly happen to someone. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. Well, when I was 17, I didn't know any better. I was just like, all right, I'm sick. The doctor's going to give me medicine. I'll get better. I ended up going to do chemotherapy 5 days a week, 7 hours a day. So like a basic high school schedule. Of course, I missed my last 2 years of, or my last year of high school. I got cancer in my junior year, and then by the time of my senior year, I was pretty much better. I could come back. But I spent hours and hours and hours getting chemotherapy because I was young and because I was fit and I could take a very aggressive style of chemo. So I'm, losing my hair. I weighed 175. I'm about maybe 175 now. I don't work out at all, but just consider me but more tan and ripped back in the day. I got down to 130 within a couple weeks. Massive nausea. Overnight stays, spinal taps. The spinal tap's fucking brutal. It's a straw. It's a needle, but it's a straw, and they stick it. It's about this long, and they stick a needle down through that, and it has to go into the sacs, like between your vertebrae. There's like this little sac here, and that's where they were checking my fluid, I suppose, in my bone marrow to make sure that the cancer hadn't metastasized. But also, that's where they would administer a drip, which just a fucking awful chemo. So I go in through 3 rounds of chemo, multiple, 2 weeks of the 5 hours or 5 days, 7 hours a day. Weekends I had off, couldn't eat anything. Lost those 40 or 50 pounds really quickly, started losing my hair. And then every 3rd week, I'd have to go to the hospital for a 24-hour drip. And it's so toxic and powerful that they have to administer at the hospital. They have to administer this rescue drug within 30 minutes of the chemo finishing. And chemotherapy, really what chemotherapy is poison. Chemotherapy it kills the fast-acting cells in your body. Now, cancer cells divide extremely quickly. So that's why when you're going through chemo, you lose your hair and you get ulcers in your mouth, and you can get ulcers in your stomach because all of those mucoepithelial cells, mucus something and epithelial cells, and your hair follicles are all fast-dividing cells. So the cancer is hidden in your body. Chemotherapy can't say, well, these are the cancer cells that we're going to kill. They just start killing all of the fast cells. So I'm getting that rescue drug, and then I have to spend another week in the hospital to recover from that. And again, I didn't know how bad it was. I had people coming to see me. It was just fucking brutal. I ended up being on the palliative care ward, which is like the level of the hospital where you go to die. And that's where all the nurses wear black scrubs, which I just thought was cool because I was a 17-year-old kid. I'm like, black's pretty fun. That's better than the pink or the purple or the blue that you wear. And then I remember hearing code 99. Code 99 was the call code for, hey, one of these patients just died. And I was on the floor where everybody was dying. Nobody told me this, because you don't tell a 17-year-old kid that's fighting for his life, like, oh yeah, dude, it's looking pretty grim, you're about to die. But that's where I was. That's what was going on. My mom and my dad would always stay with me. My brothers never came to see me. Because I deserved it. I was a piece of shit to them for a really long time. So finally I'm cured, right? And I'm like, great, maybe I can get back on with my life. Still want to just go join the Navy, and I can't. You can't join any of the armed services until you have 5 years of clean health. So cancer, like day 1 of not having cancer anymore, once all your scans come back, that's called remission. That's day 1 of remission, all the way up until year 4, day 364. That's all remission, and that's where you have the highest likelihood of relapsing or having a reoccurrence, or I don't know what it's called. Day 1 of year 5 is when you're officially considered cured. So I had 5 years to just hang out and wait before I could join military service. 17 years old, or I guess now 18, 5 years, like what the fuck do I do? I didn't have any desire to go to college, I didn't have any want, but it's what all the friends are doing, so I figured, fuck it, might as well go try that. I got 4 scholarships and 2 student loans, and I wasted all of them. I failed out of 3 schools, hated it, partied my way through the first one, partied my way through the second one, just didn't go to the third one. I didn't like being told what to do, I didn't like the subject matter. I was like, man, this is fucking institutional education is just, it's a scam, I don't like it, it's not going to apply to me. So really, I just disappointed a lot of people. I had these 2 monster student loans that I had to start paying back at some point. And that only took me like 3 years to fucking do all that. So I have another 2 years of nothing to do. So at this point, I have found a girl, and we're dating, and things are going well, and I'm trying to get my life back together and stop all of the angry stuff that I used to do too. And I'll get to that in a minute. But after I've been dating Sarah for a while, things are going good. My life is slowly getting better. I've got a part-time job. I'm paying down my student loans. I don't have anything to pay for. I'm living with my grandfather. Like, I'm starting to get my life back up under control and build something for myself. And it was a Friday night, and I'm on my way to go pick up Sarah. It's about 9 o'clock in the evening, and my mom calls me. And I was like, oh, that's weird. So I answer it. I'm like, hey, what's up? And she's crying. She's crying really, really hard. And she says, Ethan, you need to come home. Your brother just shot himself. And I didn't know what the hell she was saying. We grew up with guns. We always shot tons and tons of guns. I mean, there were guns all over my house. We all knew what firearm safety was. We kind of fucked around a little bit. We're young boys. We did some dangerous shit that we shouldn't have. But I didn't click with me what she was telling me. And I was like, yeah, is he okay? I'm just thinking like maybe he had an AD as it's an accidental discharge, or an ND as a negligent discharge, whatever. When you're just pointing the gun at something you shouldn't, you accidentally pull the trigger. And I thought maybe he shot himself in the leg, or, hurt his hand or something. I don't know. And she goes, well, he's still breathing. And I was like, oh, fuck. So I hang up the phone, and I go racing up to this intersection. And thank God, I don't know how, but there's a cop right there. So I have my flashers on. I pull up right next to him. I roll down the window, and I'm panicked. And I'm like, hey, man, I don't know what has happened, but my mom just called me and said my brother shot himself. I'm about to run every red light and go as fast as I physically can. I'm not pulling over for anybody. I just wanted to let you know this is the address that I'm headed to. And then I just went. I just left. I didn't even wait for him to reply. One of the details that have missed me for so long as I'm retelling the story is I guess I didn't understand what that cop did, but he must have called ahead, because there were state troopers and police officers at almost every single intersection blocking off the route that I was taking going to the house. And I'm doing 75 down residential streets. I'm on the highway. I hit 120, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 times, which doesn't sound like a lot, but I'm in a fucking 04 Honda Accord. So I was pushing it as fast as I could, and everything was blocked off. And they were following me far enough back to make sure that I didn't wreck. But he really must have done a solid favor. And I'm sure, he got on the line. He was like, hey, this guy's saying he's about to go break all these laws. Is there someone who's really just shot himself? So I get to the house in 10 minutes, maybe, come running up the steps. My mom is losing her fucking mind. I go running in, and my brother, the one that I was the closest to at the time, man, his face and his brain and his teeth are just all over the wall behind me, or in our living room behind him, and he's alive. So this is something that I don't know how many people know, but getting shot is not like the movies. You don't die very fast. You're trained to shoot for it's the right here around the nose, and then either under the lip or down on the chin or in the throat. If you hit any of that, more or less, you're paralyzed, it's spine shot, something along those lines. But in real life, when you get shot, you are living for a long time. The human body is resilient. It's very rare that somebody gets shot and is just instantly dead. I mean, even getting shot through the heart, you're still fucking alive. Your brain can process all of it. You just don't have blood circulating. So the brain death is, well, I guess that's what death actually is. So he's fucked, and he's breathing, and I can hear him. He's drowning in his own blood. He's lying there. His face is just fucking missing. The back of his head, oh man. And he's still alive. And I was like, but I knew he wasn't alive, so I had to stuff all that down real fast. Like, can't deal with that. I have to go take care of my mom, take care of my other brothers. So they're outside and they're like kind of panicked, not knowing what to do. So I called Grandpa, or maybe my mom called Grandpa. I can't remember who called him, but I remember hugging my family out in the yard. The coroners came in, they pick him up. He's still alive. They're taking him. I knew he was going to die. He's dead. I know he's dead. He's just not technically dead yet. And I wanted to ride with him in the ambulance. Still to this day, one of the biggest regrets of my life is that I wasn't physically there with my brother when he actually passed. Now, he wouldn't have known it. There's no way he could have comprehended it. He was fucking brain dead for all intents and purposes, but he wasn't actually dead, and I just felt like I needed to do that. But I couldn't. Still had to take care of my family. So I drive my family following the ambulance to the emergency room, and it goes on from there. It turns out he was depressed, massively depressed. Nobody knew it. He didn't tell a single soul. Now, in retrospect, that's one of those things that should have been obvious. You think about it, and you look at all the red flags that you missed, and you just don't know. But none of us were the type of kid to talk about our problems. Because of the environment we were raised in, you don't talk about your problems, you don't talk about your weakness, you never show any of it. It's a very violent, angry household full of a bunch of young, violent, angry men. And you never showed your weakness to anybody. So the one person he had talked to was his girlfriend at the time. And I called her, and I was like, hey, has John Will ever talked about shooting himself? And she just started crying immediately. And she was like, what happened? And that's how it all came out. But none of us knew that he was depressed at all. So I dealt with that for a long time, a bunch of guilt being the oldest. And I knew my brothers couldn't connect with Dad. None of us connected with Dad at all, really. And I was supposed to be there to protect them and help them. And unfortunately, I treated them a lot the same way that Dad treated me. None of us were close. None of us cared for each other or about each other. We were super violent to each other. And God, shitty. So I carried that guilt around for a long time. Like, hey, I know it's not my fault, but it's hard not to feel some level of responsibility. And like, it just sucks. So I had tons of PTSD from actually seeing him like alive there, and it turned into these weird, crazy nightmares and made me, all of that little work that I was doing to get my life back together just instantly fucked. And then I just became hateful to the whole world. So I've got the dad, and then I've got the cancer, and then I've got my brother, and then I've got the loss of my future. I got fucking nothing. It all just comes back to me in this terrible concoction of like, hey, fuck you, your life is shit, and it's a joke, and there's nothing happy. So I break up with my girlfriend, stupid fucking thing to do, because she was the one constant good thing in my life that supported me so much, and I became a true piece of shit. Awful. None of the things that had happened to me were done to me by someone. It was just kind of the chaos of life. So I wasn't angry at one particular person, and there was nowhere that I could give this anger to. It's just a fucking life in general. And because all the things that happened to me were seemingly chaotic, like I didn't choose to have abusive parents, I didn't choose to have cancer, and I didn't choose to have my brother shoot himself. They just fucking happened to me. And I couldn't do anything about any of them. I just started doing things to people that they had no control over. So in addition to all the fighting, I did tons of fighting. I was kicked out of school one time for fighting, actually, like my elementary school. Cordially uninvited to come back, something along those lines. But I would I'd go running up on the top of parking decks and just throw these cinder blocks off down on the cars that are like driving below. And luckily I didn't actually kill anybody. I don't even think I hurt anybody, just did a bunch of damage. But there was no one person that I was after. I wasn't like, oh man, look, these people are driving a rich car, these people are driving a shitty car, like this guy's crossing the street in a business suit and this guy's homeless. I didn't care. I just wanted to randomly inflict damage on people because it had been randomly inflicted upon me. And that's just the way life was supposed to be. Another time, I bought like the small little tiny hatchet from Walmart, and we lived out in the country. So there are these like hilly roads, and there's a playground right across from one of these roads. And I know I know this is the end of spring break, and I know that people speed on this road all the time, and they shouldn't. And in my mind, well, you're breaking the rules, you should be punished for it. I was fucked up. I was really fucked up in the head. So I go hiking up into the woods a little bit, because there's this country road, and I chop down 2 trees that are, I don't know, maybe like this big around, and I come and I drag them over the blind side of a hill. So like the hill's coming down, and I would lay these trees right here to where when your headlights are coming up, you can't see it. But as soon as you crest the hill, it's way too late for you to stop. And my rationale was, well, if someone's going the speed limit, 45 miles an hour, they will have time to stop. And if they're not, then they get what's coming to them. And I know it's spring break, and I know it's getting past curfew, and I know a whole bunch of young kids that are like 16, 17 years old are going to be drinking and driving and speeding. And I was like, good, fuck it, they get what's coming to them. So I ran back across the street, and I'm hiding at that playground, and I see this young blonde woman just come racing over the hill, just like I knew she would. Fucking ripped the trees, ripped her car, slammed on the brakes, spinning around. Like, so I was like, oh my God, I was so excited that my thing had worked. And then right behind her comes somebody else. And then it just started to be like a lot. I was like, oh shit, I need to get the fuck out of here. So I go racing around, walk back to my car that I parked several streets over. And then like 2 hours later, I was like, man, I want to see what the fuck happened. I want to see what's going on. So I drive back there, and there's a huge long line of cars, ambulances, fire trucks, police cars. Tow truck is off to the side somewhere, but it hasn't actually done. These cars are fucked up. One of them rolled, one of them, it was bad. And I just drove through along with everybody else, kind of gawking like, oh, I did that. So yeah, that was pretty bad. Man, I guess the fighting was pretty rough. I'd get in fights with people all the time over nothing. I was looking for fights. I constantly threatened to murder my father, dream about, tell him like I can't wait to kill you one day. I was just in a really, really dark place. And then finally, enough time had passed to where I could go. And through all this, I still want to be a SEAL. That's all I've ever wanted to do. So finally enough time has passed, and I can go do it and go join the circus. You fast forward a couple years after that, I am living in Houston. Don't have a job, don't have any experience in life, don't have a degree. And all the skills that I did have were useless. I didn't get to do anything. Like I'm not going into security. I'm not an author. I'm not a creator. I don't have any fucking skills except for destroying things, like places and people and lives and just hurting people. That's all I was good at. So now I'm really lost. I've got nothing. I'm in this big city. I went out there to visit my grandmother, my mom, my dad's mom. And I was like, okay, well, the city's big. I was raised in the South. I like big cities. I like the South. I'll just try and stick around here and see what goes on. $7,000. It was all the money I had in the world. At this point, I'm driving an 06 Toyota Corolla with like 240,000 miles. It's awful, shitty. I've got nothing. I'm sleeping on my grandmother's couch, except for when I'd stay out too late, she'd lock the door, and I'm sleeping in the car. I meet the girl that I am currently with now. It was about 4 years ago, and things are going well. And we weren't expecting things to start going so well, but they did. Again, I still don't have a job, so I was like, man, fuck, I need to start looking for a job. So I'm looking for jobs everywhere. Took a job as a moving salesman, because when I was failing out of one of those schools, I was actually a mover. Like, I'd be the guy that comes and like wraps all your stuff up and lifts it and carries it into the truck. So I became really great at the sales there. I apparently am a good salesman. So I'm doing okay there, but I'm not enjoying it. I was drinking in the morning. I'm still super angry at life, angry at everything. I'd take like this bottle of water, not like a 16-ounce bottle or an 8-ounce. It's a full 32-ounce water bottle I just fill with vodka. I'll be drinking it first thing in the morning, answering phone calls. This is Ethan. I was in a really bad place, but I was still crushing sales. So nobody, and also I worked in the office by myself. I was the only person there for a long time because the company's headquarters anyways, they had cameras and I was always on the phone with them and they could talk to me, but nobody was there to smell the vodka on my breath or, see that I'm stumbling around. And I was still so angry. I get in huge fights with my girlfriend. I remember, oh man, so over dumb shit. But one time, she and I are just having this knockdown, drag out, end of the relationship fight, and I don't know what it's about. She like slaps me, and I grab her by the throat, and I like shove her up against the window. I'm like, don't ever fucking hit me. That's a huge thing for me, is being physically touched in any kind of way. Still to this day, and I'm much, much better now. But if anybody physically comes after me in an abusive or angry and hurtful way, I just go crazy. I go really crazy. It's that animal instinct of like the people that say that they love you turning around and physically hurting you makes me crazy. So I'm like shoving her up against the glass, and I was like, okay, wait, Ethan, you don't hit girls. You don't do, like, what the fuck are you doing? And now, of course, she's scared. She's looking at me different. I don't blame her. I'm scared. I'm looking at myself different. Like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? And I just forced her to get the fuck out of my car. And it's pouring rain. And she's like, are you kidding me? Like, what am I doing? She doesn't have a car. She's here visiting family from Mexico. I'm like, get the fuck out of my car. And she gets out, and I just fucking leave this woman. Beautiful, amazing, good-hearted. I mean, don't get me wrong. She's got that attitude. That's why she slapped me, right? But I just like, get the fuck out, and I leave her. And that's the kind of person that I was. That's the kind of person that I have always been. And a long time, I just didn't think that I had a choice in being this person, but I'm fucking hating my life. I'm drinking super early in the morning. I'm abusing anybody that comes close to me. I'm carrying around a bunch of guilt and anger and hate. I'm doing a job that I can't stand, and I'm good at it, but it's not a whole lot of money. I don't ever want to fucking do it. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm just so lost in... Wow, this is going to sound cheesy, but I'm lost in the darkness of life. I'm like, what the fuck is happening? But I'm not suicidal, and I don't give up. So I decided to start going to therapy, start making some changes. I ended up getting a job as a lender in the real estate world. Then I saw some of Matt's videos, and things are going good. This therapy changed my life a lot. I feel really terrible. I've tried to make amends, reached out to a bunch of people that I shouldn't have, or a bunch of people that I hurt that I shouldn't have, trying to change my life and turn it around. And for the first time in my life, I feel like I actually have something that I made that is worth losing. And it's such a good feeling to have. I wouldn't trade it. I wouldn't trade it for anything. There are so many things that happened and that have happened, and that, well, now if I take any more hits like I took before, I know that I have a solid foundation to come back to, and it's something reliable that I built. It's mine. Nobody can take it away from me. Nobody gave it to me. Nobody's, the only person in the world that can threaten it is me. And that is what I crave. That's what I love. It's the stability. And I'm choosing every day to say, fuck chaos.